Hi, everybody. So, excuse me. This is really exciting. I have been debating about whether I should do this series or if I should just abandon it, if anybody really cared. But I figured I had a free night, so why not just talk a little bit about what I've seen so far this year. And I did my post Sundance wrap up in January, but then I got really sick, and so I didn't have much of a voice, and I figured I kind of recapped most that I saw, and I talked about most that I'd seen, so it was fine. And so I didn't do one at the beginning of February for what I'd seen in January. I just kind of let the Sundance one count. And so now I'm going to talk about what I've seen in the theater in January and February. And it's just a reminder, like, there's certain movies that I just don't see. Like, I'm not seeing 50 Shades Darker. I don't see movies with explicit content. I try to not see movies that are really graphically violent. And I try not to see movies with, too much profanity. It is somewhat subjective depending on the film and whether I think it's worth it or not. It's just up to my call in the end. But I'm not going to probably go see Logan. Cure for Wellness I didn't see. So there's just some movies that I just don't see because of the violence and some of the other things going on. So that's it. I did not see Split because I was sick, and I just haven't gotten around to seeing it. And I'm not a big Shyamalan fan, and so I don't know. I just haven't seen it. But so that's why, if you're wondering, why the heck is that missing? Why is that missing? It's just I just haven't gone around. I haven't seen it. So, but let's talk. I have them kind of in order, and I do have the chat room open if anybody wants to chat about any of these. Okay. All right. So I've seen in the theater 22 movies so far this year. There were a couple that aren't on Letterboxd yet that I saw at Sundance. And so I'll just mention those. So I guess I've seen 24, including both of those. So, okay. The first, the lowest on my list out of the 24 is, the two that aren't on Letterboxd. One is the Sundance nominated shorts, animated shorts. And I was very underwhelmed by them. None of them really stood out to me. They all seemed like they were trying to be sort of variations on other things that I've seen before. A lot of them felt like they were trying to copy Don Hertzfeldt. And I don't know, I was surprised it just weren't that creative, weren't that interesting. So I was disappointed in the animated shorts for Sundance. And then I also saw something called Rise, which was about the Native American experience, and it was pretty good, but it was also felt kind of propagandish to me. And I don't tend to like really message-heavy documentaries very much. And so I guess I didn't really love that. But it was still good, and I admire them for what they did. But it just felt a little one-sided and to me. So let's go. So those are the two that aren't on here. Okay. I'm just downstairs today. I figured be a little more casual. Here we go. So the first one on my list is from Martin Scorsese, and this is his film Silence. And I did not care for this movie at all. I thought it was 3 hours of basic torture porn. I never felt like, I mean, I have experience as a missionary, and I felt like it completely missed the mark on the type of person, in my experience, that becomes a missionary, that becomes a servant of God. There was never any sense of love for the people. And I felt like the whole message of the movie was about how missionaries are egotistical, and it's their pride, not their beliefs, that get in the way of saving these people. And that, you know, that the Andrew Garfield character wasn't even about whether he believed it was true or not. It was about the fact that he was prideful, and he wasn't willing to let his pride go. And I felt like that just doesn't gel with any kind of missionary that I've ever met or been experienced with. And I just felt like it was so excessive, and just wallowing in this incredible violence. And I think that in order to provide any kind of hope or any kind of peace or anything, that you needed to have that love. You needed to have that. I mean, compare it to a movie like A Man's Search for Meaning, which is also about a person who is asked to deny their faith, but it's very hopeful. And I understand this is a true story, but there's, like, for instance, there's one scene where a person gets hung upside down with slits in their ears, so the blood pours down from them, and so that they slowly bleed to death. And you hear them screaming in agony. It's not enough that we see that once. We see it again with like 6 people. You know, it just felt so excessive and so just, I hated it. I thought it was horrible. It's very well made, but man, I almost walked out. I hated it. So, you know, quality movies, well-made movies can be garbage too. So I know that might be controversial because other people like that movie, but I thought it was just awful. So, so anyway, so that's the bottom of my list for movies that I saw. And then the next from the bottom is another slickly made movie that I thought was trash, and that is Lady Macbeth. And this will come out, I think, in July. And this movie was so stupid, and it's wrapped in the sort of the outer wrappings of sort of a period Gothic Sundance kind of film, but the characters have no chemistry together. They're supposed to be this like torrid, corset ripping romance or whatever. They have no chemistry at all. They just like become attached like out of the blue. There's no like dialogue between the two of them. It makes no sense what she decides to do. And then it just becomes increasingly more ridiculous. My theater was laughing at parts that were supposed to be tense, and like they're trying to be all like creative and everything like that. Like there's one scene where a character dies, and the first thing that you see is the cat, and it's like this long panning shot of the cat, and that's supposed to be like artistic or something, and it's just crap. And I just thought it was so ridiculous. It's just one of those movies where like the characters keep making the same stupid decisions over and over and over and over and over again, and it was just, I thought it was terrible. Next on my list is Table 19. And this was a disappointment just because of the cast and the people behind it. It's written by the Duplass brothers, who can do funny stuff, but this I didn't think was funny at all. Well, not really. The only part I really liked was Lisa Kudrow and Craig Robinson as this couple, and I thought they had chemistry together, and they really felt like a couple, and they had enough backstory because it's about all these people at this wedding that are in this like outcast table, and it was mostly just boring, and it just wasn't funny. And they like will start up sort of jokes and start up segments and then like not really finish them. And I felt like the dialogue was very, very badly written, which is kind of essential for this kind of a thing. The characters were pretty unlikable, and the main sort of conflict with the Anna Kendrick character, I thought wasn't compelling. It was just it was a bad sitcom, but it wasn't even entertaining on that level. I think it was pretty bad. It was like going to a boring wedding, which is bad. And then next, I have Rock Dog, which is not as bad as it looks. I gave it 2.5 stars on Letterboxd. It kind of has two plot lines. One plot line is about him wanting this dog wanting to create music, and I actually thought that was kind of charming. Actually, the music's not that bad. Like the scenes where he's dreaming about music, or when he's like picturing the music, I thought that was pretty good. Oh, hi. And I thought that the animation was passable. It was better than I thought it would be. Still not great, but it's not. It was better than I thought it would be. But then there's this whole sort of other plot of the dogs protecting these sheep from these wolves that are like these wolf gangsters, and that whole thing was a total miss. Didn't like it. So pretty much half the movie I didn't like, but then half the movie I kind of had fun with and I liked. So it wasn't a good movie, but it's not a total train wreck. It's not completely horrible like you might think from the ads. So that's Rock Dog. Next up on my list is The Great Wall. And I had way more fun with this than it seems like most people did. To me, this was a B movie that a lot of people were upset that's whitewashing and stuff. But actually, like, he's not really the hero in that many scenes. Like, and he's not playing a Chinese man. He's playing it's not as much a white savior as it looks. There are a few moments, but for the most part, they're kind of equally yoked in this. And it's goofy and it's silly. But I know I had fun with it on sort of a B movie kind of level, a monster movie, and you're watching Godzilla, you're watching King Kong, movies like that. You just kind of want like a silly action monster movie. And I thought on that level it was enjoyable. That the battle scenes, the monster scenes are pretty fun. Some pretty good special effects and pretty interesting. Like the way the battles were set up were a little bit different than I've seen before. I mean, the dialogue was terrible. William Dafoe, his character is terrible. Pretty much all the characters aren't great. But so it's just sort of a monster movie. And if you like goofy, stupid monster movies, I think that there's fun to be had here. I think the critics were a little too harsh on it, and we should be able to appreciate a B movie nowadays. I feel like it's the kind of movie that Roger Ebert would have actually liked. But who knows? So anyway, then next up on my list is The Yellow Birds, and this was another one at Sundance. This is a movie that I'm impressed with how much they were able to do on the budget. It stars Alden Ehrenreich, I think is how you say it, who's going to be new Han Solo, and it's a war movie. And it's good. It has a lot of good pieces in it. Jennifer Aniston is very good in it. If you've never seen her be good, this is a really good one. It has Ty Sheridan in it, and they play these friends who are serving. And the biggest problem, it's over in Afghanistan, I think. The biggest problem with the movie is that they chose to divide it up and to tell the story using nonlinear storytelling. And so it's constantly jumping from one time period, so it'll be before the war to in the war to after the war to, dealing with post-traumatic stress to all of this stuff. And I just felt like that narrative really, really hurt the movie a lot. And it just made it kind of they should have just gone with the traditional start before the war, take us all the way through, and then end with what happens. I don't think it added anything. And if anything, I think it really took away from the movie, jumping all around all the time. So that was the biggest problem I had with it. But there were a lot of good things about it, and I would still recommend it. Next up, I have I Am Not Your Negro. I was not as high on this documentary as most people seem to be. I felt like it had a very unique perspective of James Baldwin, and I appreciated that. But I felt like it was very caustic and harsh, and I felt like the certain things were sort of, felt like he took some cheap shots at people that weren't warranted or deserved. And like, for instance, he goes off on Doris Day at one point, calling her garbage and trash and the worst thing that's ever existed and stuff like that. And I don't understand why. What did Doris Day ever do? And and he's just so critical of everything. I mean, I'm just not talking about just Doris Day, like everything. He's so critical of Sidney Poitier. He's so critical of every movie, even he's pretty critical of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, although he's less critical of them. He's just critical of everyone, and nobody can live up to his high standards, I guess. And so I felt it was sort of exhausting watching it, to be honest, just being around somebody who is that critical of everyone. It's so pessimistic. So that's why I struggled with the movie. Okay, next I have Patriots Day. And this movie, it's interesting because I feel like it's underrated, but then I feel like some people have over defended it because I think it deserved some. I could have totally seen it in the sound categories, some of the other categories, but I definitely don't think it's some kind of overlooked masterpiece either. I think that it really, when I first started it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm hating this movie because every single person seemed like a Boston cliche, even down to the swearing. There's a lot of swearing in Patriots Day. And it just seemed like, oh, here's the cop and here's the, and so I was like, oh no, this is gonna suck. And I was nervous. And then, but once, and certainly the Boston bombing is very intense because I followed this like nobody's business. I was on watching the TV 24/7 that week or 10 days or whatever that was. I was just so engrossed in every single development when they're having like practically warfare in the middle of Newtown, and there's bombs going off and people throwing, it was just so crazy. And I couldn't believe that they were able to find this guy in the midst of all this crowd so fast. And you have this guy getting abducted, this Chinese guy, and I don't know, there were just so many crazy things that happened that I was really glued to and I was glued to Twitter. I remember following the Boston police department's Twitter handle during the thing and getting the first-hand account of what was going on, and it was just crazy. And so I was really, really interested to see this movie. And once the investigation gets going, then it really started to win me over. They really captured all of those things that I had been following all those weeks. They captured it really well and captured the feel of it all and sort of each revelation. And so I didn't mind the caricatures as much at that point, and overall I ended up leaving it feeling entertained. So I gave it 3 stars by the end because I do think it's worth seeing, but it was the beginning was rough for me on that. So there you go. Okay, then the next movie is called The Hero. This movie stars Sam Elliott, and he plays this, this was a Sundance movie. He plays this aging actor who is was famous for playing a Western cowboy guy, and he finds out he has cancer. And he's great in the role. This is one movie where the performance is much better than the movie itself. And I thought that him and Nick Offerman were really great as sort of these friends. And then the thing that dragged the movie down is I thought the romance was super lame, super predictable, super, like, they just didn't have chemistry. And I didn't think it worked really at all. But he's great. I could see him getting nominated for this. He's very, very good. Anyway, so then next on my list is My Life as a Zucchini. And this movie, I saw it at Sundance, and I feel really conflicted about it. It's an animated film for adults, but it looks really, really, and I would say that's kind of unusual. Like most animation for adults looks like animation for adults. And so this was just sort of weird to have these really cute cute characters doing and dealing with these horrible things. And there are some nice adults in here for sure, but man, there's just some horrible ones, and it's very upsetting to see uh to see that that the it's very upsetting to see these things happen to children, and to uh um and to uh and to know that like that actually happens, and that actually exists, and that these children are treated so horribly. And so it was very hard to watch at times, and very upsetting. So that's my struggle with that movie, but it's still definitely worth seeing. So there you go. Next, I have Rebel in the Rye, and this is the story of J.D. Salinger. Nicholas Hoult stars as J.D. Salinger, and this is a standard biopic. It's nothing like, it doesn't break the mold in any way, and I think they could have shown sort of his descent into sort of this sort of madness, I guess, that a little bit better, but it's very satisfying. Kevin Spacey's in it, and he's really good as his teacher. Overall, it's just entertaining, classic biopic about a writer. Next, I have Fences, and I saw that again, and it's just the play, and it's a great play. So if you like the play, then you'll like this. Great performances. It's well shot. But I don't really have desire to see it again. I've seen the play, plus I've seen the movie twice. So there you go. Next, I have A Monster Calls. And this movie, I think, should have gotten a visual effects nomination, but it didn't. I actually liked it. I didn't like it as much. I was hoping I would love it, but then I didn't love it. But I thought it was moving, and I thought the child actor was really good, and I thought it captured the feel of the book about as well as you could. And it's very emotionally manipulative and tries to get you to cry, maybe a little bit too much, but I still thought it was a good movie, and I gave it 4 stars. Next, I have Arrival. And Arrival I saw again, and I definitely liked it better on the second viewing. I felt like I understood it better on the second viewing, and it is so beautiful, and it's so immersive, and it's so bold, and I'm glad to see bold filmmaking. I still think that it's a movie that feels very small. It's just about one woman, and you have 12 pods in this world life-changing thing. I think it could have done a better job of showing how this new time dimension and this new thing, how it affected the whole world, or at least a few more people in these different pods. I think that would have made it a little bit richer of an experience, but it's still a good movie for sure, and I'm glad that it did so well. Next, I have the Oscar-nominated short films and the animated films, and I really enjoyed most of these. I was so excited to see that Sing won for Best Live Action Short, because that was my favorite. It's really charming if you get a chance to see it. I also liked The Girl and the TGV, and the so movie used to go, my kid loved it, he is 12. Arrival? Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so Sing, Mr. TGV, and Time Code. Those were all 3 really, really cute. The Immigrants ones, I thought were going to win one of them, but I didn't really like them that much. And then as far as the animated shorts, I really liked Piper, and I really liked Borrowed Time. That was very moving, and I liked Pearl. And then I wasn't as big a fan of Pear Cider and Cigarettes, and I wasn't as big a fan of Blind Vice, although it was interesting. It was cool. So anyway, it's always cool to see the shorts. I highly recommend it. But that's really cool that your 12-year-old liked Arrival, because honestly, I was pretty confused by it first watch. So he's smarter than I am, I think. Anyway, okay. So next, I saw The Good Postman. this documentary about a man in Serbia who a man in Bulgaria who they're getting all these Serbian refugees and how he's going to like deal with them. And he ends up running for mayor. And there's this other guy that's also running for mayor and their rivalry is really funny. So it's a movie that deals with some really tough stuff, but does it in a really endearing and likable way. Highly recommend it. Really good film. Next was another Sundance film movie says we talked about it on the ride home. He had some deep thoughts. Oh, that's so cute. I love that. I'm serious. He's probably smarter than I am because I took me 2 watches to really kind of understand what it was saying about time and dimensions and everything else. But the next movie that I saw at Sundance is called Wilson. This movie has tons of profanity and some sensuality, but I actually thought if you can get beyond that, it was very sweet. And it was pretty funny. Well written. If you liked Edge of 17, if you like that kind of some more caustic humor, I think you might like Wilson. So when it comes out later this year, you might want to check it out. And he says, it was interesting that he understood it. Yeah, that's really cool. Good for you. For taking your kids to those kind of movies. We sometimes think that they can't understand more than they do, and they surprise us so often. Next, I saw Manchester by the Sea, and this movie I think is really beautiful. It did take me a while to get into it. I've seen it twice. Woo. But I think it's such a good example of you never know what other people are going through. You never know what other people are experiencing, and so. There's this great scene where they've just come out of the funeral home and this guy walking by says, "Oh, good parenting, dude." And he has no idea the incredible things that these characters have had to go through. And it just reminded me of like, stop, take a second before you judge another person and try to walk in their shoes for a little bit. And I thought it was so well written, so well acted. And I was glad I saw it even twice. Next, I saw the Lego Batman movie, and this was hilarious. I laughed so hard. As somebody who's not that huge onto Batman, I respect it, but I don't love it like most people. And so to see it kind of taken down a notch and made fun of was so awesome. It's so hilarious. I really enjoyed it. Not as much as the Batman movie, as the Lego movie, because I didn't think it had the same visual effects. Like when the characters in Lego movie would dive into water, you'd see the Legos merge and flow, and this just looked like regular water, and that was kind of disappointing. And some of the other visuals just weren't quite as impressive as the Lego movie. And then also, I didn't think it had quite the emotional oomph as the Lego movie had, when you see that this is a kid playing with Legos the way that a kid does, and the randomness of it. And then it was just really moving, I think, the original, and this was just a lot of fun and very hilarious. So I'm glad I saw it twice. And then I saw Hidden Figures, which I just think is such a satisfying biopic. It's such a good, I love movies about work, and this was a movie about how the institutions can be, we can have institutional racism, institutional discrimination, and how that can be the most virulent of all, and how these women just pushed through. And it was really, really heartwarming, and my whole theater just wanted to cheer. All the performances are great, and it's the kind of movie you just want to take your whole family to, and you can all have a lesson together with Hidden Figures. Next, I have The Red Turtle, and I realized something last year, that there are a couple different kinds of artistic movies, and there are artistic movies that are sort of more slow and contemplative and peaceful and beautiful. And those are the kind of artistic movies that I tend to respond to. The ones I don't respond to are the ones that are sort of surrealist and sarcastic and trying to be kind of caustic and in your face and kind of a thing. Like, I did not like Swiss Army Man. I did not like Jackie, and I did not like The Lobster, like a lot of people did. But I did like Knight of Cups, and I did like The Red Turtle, and I did like movies like that I liked Moonlight. I liked that they're slower, they're peaceful, they're contemplative, they're beautiful. And The Red Turtle is certainly a story like that. It is just, the animation is so beautiful, the music is so beautiful, it has no dialogue, it's a very simple story. And it was just stunning. If you get a chance to see it, definitely take advantage of the opportunity. It's a beautiful story about life and nature. And so then I saw Lion, and Lion, just to me on a second viewing, was just even better. I don't care if people say it's Oscar bait. I loved it. I thought it was such an emotional, moving story about real people that I connected with and that I could relate to, and I felt like their story, and I loved the adoption message. And I thought the little kid was so great. There's a scene where he realizes that he's with bad people and he just has to run. And when he does, I'm just like cheering. Yes, I'm so proud of him at that moment. And then I thought the moment when he gets to Tasmania was very believable and beautiful and felt authentic. And his sort of struggles to try to deal with his adoption as an adult. And then when he finally gets to meet his birth mother, like, that was just so moving. I loved it. The cinematography is amazing. I can't believe it was his first film that he ever did. Garth Davis, he did an amazing job. He should be very proud of it, and I cannot wait to see what he does next. Plus, Dev Patel was very hunky in the role. Then the last movie that I saw in 2017 so far is Step. This was a documentary at Sundance. Keep an eye out for it. I loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. And it's about a troupe of high school step dancers, I guess, in this high school, this charter school in Baltimore. And they all had a commitment from their school that they were all going to make it to college. And it was such a great movie for school choice, which I believe passionately in, but also, just that we as a community need to be committed to these kids, and we need to, and really the Step was just sort of a tool. And these documentary filmmakers followed them for like 7 years or something. And it really reminded me of Hoop Dreams. By the end, you just want to cheer. You're so excited, so moved, so by the story. And it makes you believe that there's good things out there, the good people out there, is this documentary. It was so good. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up on my top films of 2017. I loved it. And so I highly recommend when you get a chance, check out Step. It was great. So that's the movies that I've seen so far this year. And I hope that that you get to check out some of these. Overall, I mean, I pretty much enjoyed most of them. And there's about 4 or 5 that I didn't, but that's always gonna be the case. And I look forward to the next couple of months. Hopefully there'll be some good movies coming out. And so thanks so much for watching this. And if you make comment, I really appreciate it. And I look forward to your comments below. And yeah, please subscribe to my channel and let me know what you've been seeing and what you like. And if you disagree with me or agree with me on anything I've said, put it in the comment section. And thanks so much. Please subscribe to my channel. I'll talk to you later.